Hey, this is Brian T. Atkinson. You're here watching Time to Connect.
Hey, Brian T, how are you doing, man? Thanks so much for taking the time to connect.
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. It's been a while. I was just looking at this a little while ago, and you were a guest on this podcast in June of 2023. Does that
Wow.
surprise you at all that it's been that long?
I have a really bad sense of time. And my best guess is sort of like today. I didn't really have a plan. I mean, I work on my book every day, but like I woke up and just dicked around or whatever. And I sat down and started working on this new book. I swear to God, I looked at the clock a few times and hours would just
Yeah.
like it was three something before I knew it, and it was like, holy crap. Because so yeah, maybe it's that, but the answer is I don't know. It seems like 20 years ago and yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you, man. Yeah, I'm much to say, but I got to say, what you just said speaks very highly of you because, in my experience, one of the things that phones have done to us and the technology has made it difficult for us to get absorbed in our work for that long. Within 15 or 20 minutes, most people are thinking, is there something else I'm supposed to be doing? I better check my phone. I better check my email. So I think that's good news that you can get lost in your work like that.
Well, I mean, you happen to catch me on a good work day.
Uh,
Like it's not, I wish
Okay.
every day was like that. That's sort of like my ideal, and
Yeah.
most of the days are the days that nobody wants to go through to do this gig where I can't focus. I'm on social media, even though I don't really participate. I'm just looking at news and stuff, or
Yeah.
oh, I think it's something in the yard to do, and I'm trying to prioritize my life differently now and take care of my life better, as opposed to just doing books all the time. I mean, I did
Yeah.
that. My last decade has been sitting right here,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to just as I'm starting to get, lose hair and get to that point, it's like, man, I gotta take care of myself, take care of what I have, and so yeah. But every once in a while, you get in a good day like that, like today, and it's just for me that happens when I'm well past interviews and I have to have a little bit of a distance, so I don't remember the people as well. I'm just looking at words and don't remember how they influenced how they wanted this thing to go, and it's just like now it's just down to making a story happen. And that's where I get really lost in this stuff. That's when it's fun, man. I mean, you're putting together like a life story. You get to tell somebody's story. Like it's pretty cool.
And man, you put out a bunch of books, books on Towns and Ray Wiley and Mickey Newberry and Nancy Griffith and Rocky Erickson and more. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is this new one on Todd Snider. What odd timing it was when that book came out.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about a couple other things, but let's definitely talk about this book.
Sure.
What was this may not be a fair question. It had to be a very strange experience for you getting ready to publish this book to hear about his really horribly tragic death.
Yes, I guess. I mean, yeah, obviously it was, but Todd lived in a way where, in that sort of Towns-ish way, where anytime after 33 or so, it could have been any time. So it's one of those where you read people saying stuff like, well, I was surprised but not shocked. Like the way what happened, it's all muddy and that's very Todd-like to have this weird way to go out. But he lived the way he wanted to live. He made no bones about it. You have a lot of people who are really into substances and things who have regrets and remorse, and he just did not. And on one hand, I think that's really commendable to live exactly how you want, and on the other, it leaves a lot of complications and it leaves a lot of hurt feelings. And but then at the same time, he has legions of people just idolizing. So
Yeah.
it's that thing like, what do you want to be? I don't know. He was what he wanted to be. and we had a lot of, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but I mean, we had a lot of talks about that because he had weird hours, you know. I mean, for a guy who played shows until 1 in the morning or whatever, and got on a bus, like he was up every day at 3:30, 4. He was working, he was writing, you know, and our interviews were like, I don't know, I'm sure I said, but we did like 6 or 7 interviews, like formal interviews, and they were like, you know, 3:30, 4 in the morning until 8 or 9,
Wow.
you know, which is, it's weird. It's a really interesting thing, especially coming off a Rocky Erickson book where like it was the flip side. I had all these like older acid heads, you know, like who still were like all night owls, you know, calling me at 1 in the morning. So I'm coming off of this like thing where people were just calling me at all hours. So I had to be on my toes. And then to go to Todd, where I'm waking up at 3:30 so I can do an interview for 4 hours starting at 4 a.m., you know? Anyway, what I'm getting at is like, this was like 5 years ago, by the way. Like we did this the first year of the pandemic. This book has been on the shelf for a long time. Um, and it was just a sort of like, that's when I sort of started feeling my age. He definitely was. And we got to be like two middle-aged dudes griping about our shit basically a lot. And I mean, a lot of that's off the record. I mean, we can talk about it, but it's not in the book. And but it's just like, you know, sun starts coming up and you get, it's as deep when you're in your 50s, I think, is when you're like 22 and you stay up till sunrise and you have those talks with your friends, you know. Then you start watching the sun come up where you were just like, oh man, it's been a long ride, you know, but it's been cool. Anyway, yeah.
You know, did he just not sleep, or did he end up napping in the afternoons? Because I'd heard that he got up to work at 5 or 6, if not earlier, every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, yeah, surely he played, especially on those nights where he played shows until 2 or 3, but maybe got 2 hours of sleep at the most. Do you know? Did he sleep in the afternoon, or did he just not sleep?
No, he slept. I mean, I don't know exactly his schedule, but the best that I can tell is one thing he always said was, I get in more trouble before lunch than most people do at night, you know.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like, well, when I called him at 4 in the morning, every time he would say, hold on a second, man, I got to get my coffee and my morning J. And he'd be smoking pot the whole time we were talking, you know. And like, that's how, I mean, he just did, that's just what he did, you know.
Right.
He was, and so yeah, by 8 or 9 or 10, he was probably feeling pretty good. And like whatever trouble he got into, yeah, it was before you had lunch. And then he probably took a nap for a few hours in the
Sure.
afternoon and
Sure.
then kick started it. He was just sort of like a slow burner, you know, like and he was always like on his game. Is I'm sure he wasn't all the time, but when I was around him, and even in the times that were just him or talking or on this bus or whatever, you know, it wasn't, he was in good shape, you know.
Yeah, and you brought up towns, and it's certainly, I even put that in my notes to ask you, if about the comparison there, because I think he is similar to Towns in a lot of ways, but he's very different from Towns in a lot of ways. For one thing, Towns became, sort of embarrassing. There were those shows that he was just so fucked up that everyone around was embarrassed. And Todd wasn't always on his game, but I didn't have the sense that he had those kind of experiences so much. Is that true?
I mean, he had some. I mean,
Okay.
there's this like infamous show where, you know, he was out in LA doing like a label thing and he just like
Yes.
quit, it threw a fit and started insulting people in the crowd and walked out. I mean, things happen, but that was when he's younger, you know. I mean,
Well,
the
well, and
older,
that was more of a disdain. At least as I read it, that was more of a disdain for, the industry and for the corporate types. And he's like, I think I remember this from your book. He looked at him and said, "You guys bore me. I'm going to do one more song and I'm out of here." To me, that sounded more like a guy who had his wits about him and just had disdain, similar to the Americana awards that he went to and didn't play nice there, as opposed to Towns, who was just out of it.
well, okay, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, and I was at that Americana show, he gave me the laundry list of substances he was on that night too. So I mean, it's not like I get what you're saying, but at the
Right.
same time, he probably wouldn't have done that had he not been on. I
Sure.
mean, like, I mean, it was like a dozen things, and acid was the lowest on the, you know, he was on everything,
Yeah.
and to him
Well,
it was just like, well, this is what I was taking that day. It wasn't like, oh man,
yeah.
I was crazy. It was just like, yeah.
One thing
So
I knew he smoked a lot of pot and did a lot of acid, and maybe we'll tell the story about Otis Gibbs and how he wanted to be on his
yeah.
podcast and he was tripping when he was on it. But one of the things I was wondering, did he what other drugs was it? Was he pretty much doing everything? I mean, I don't want to trash talk him or anything, but was it pretty much just alcohol, pot, and LSD, or was it pretty much everything else?
It was everything, and I would say, I
Yeah,
mean, I don't feel like I'm trash talking at all because I think he was a lot like Guy Clark, you know, like he just wanted the truth,
yeah,
you know, and he really wasn't ashamed of. I mean, I'm sure he did stuff that embarrassed him once. Everybody does, but like
sure,
he really didn't have. He was proud of what he did, and I think he was proud of how he could handle himself most of the time, even as fucked up as he got, you know, and
yeah,
um, so he pot was just a constant thing. It was like breathing to him. But
right, right,
booze for a long time. Then he quit. He hadn't had a drink in like well, almost a decade, I think, by the time he died, because his stomach was all fucked up and like.
yeah,
But he had to quit. So then he just that's actually when he quit drinking is when he kind of got in around the hardworking Americans and he got into psychedelics a lot. So it's
yeah,
like, you know,
yeah,
okay, well, um,
yeah,
he went through phases. You know, he did heroin for a while and coke and
yeah,
morphine. Jenny would be better at this because she knows him so much better than I do. I think morphine was his thing when he was younger.
okay,
It's a weird thing to be doing, like a
yeah,
street kind of drug. You know,
yeah, for sure,
But yeah, no, he did it. He tried everything. I mean,
yeah,
you know, he just tried it.
yeah. Well, man, let's tell some Todd stories, but I also want to just talk to you about the book itself and your experience of putting it together. When did you said you started it, what, 2020, somewhere around there?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
the whole first year of the pandemic was this book. Yeah.
And Prime died in 2020, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, feels like soon into the pandemic, wasn't it? Like wasn't he one of the first people like for me at least it was he was one of the first
Yes.
where it was like, "Oh shit, this is
Right.
real."
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah,
And a
me
lot
too.
of people had died, but he was the first one I identified, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And the next one was the guy from Fountains of Wayne. And for me, it's like, oh man, this is starting to kill off our songwriters. But hey, what I know that you Prine appears a lot through this book, and there's one little story that I want to read, just a paragraph that's great when he critiqued Long Year. But
Yeah.
but did you interview Prine about Todd, or did you draw from other interviews?
No, that was one of the few things I hate using secondary sources, but you have to, you know, sometimes when
Sure.
someone's not around. And you know, he had died before he
Okay.
died either before I got around to asking or before I started. I can't remember, but yeah, it was just off the table. He and Jerry Jeff was another bummer because you know, he did the forward for my Ray Wiley book, and he was the only person to this day who's actually written their own forward. And he called me like a dozen times at least to ask if this was okay to do or that was, and he was like really serious about it, you know. And
Mhm.
so it would have been so cool to, I mean, he would have been perfect. He would have totally been one of the forwards, but he had died
Yeah.
year three before that. I can't remember.
So, uh, what I know this is what you do. You put out this series of books, but you remember just thinking, okay, one of these has to be Todd Snider. Is it just something you've been a fan of his for a while? Is it just something that needed to be done? Do you remember what gave you the real push to go, okay, the next one's going to be about Todd?
Man, I don't remember just because Todd's like just been a part of.
Okay.
He's always been one like there are people that you just sort of identify with, you know. Not that I never wanted to be Todd or look up to him. It was just like, man, if I did that gig, that's sort of how that's what not necessarily all the drugs and stuff, but just his general demeanor and stuff. Like I just
Yeah.
identified with him really. And
Yeah.
so I always knew I wanted to. I would have to imagine that Jenny was somehow a part of that, but I never really needed to be convinced. I just wanted to do it, and I got in touch with Tom Lemons, our guy at A&M, and there was some hesitation, but and I can't remember what flipped it, but not much. I mean, I brought it up and I got the green light, and Todd was all about it. I mean, Todd needed an ego boost. I mean, he just did, and he so he loved this, and
Good,
but
good.
I can't really remember. Like I,
Okay.
I always thought I would do a book. I'm sure I always thought I'd do a Todd book. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so then as these things go, you start reaching out to the potential contributors.
yeah.
And what was that like? And how did you kind of whittle down your list? And I know it's been 5 or 6 years, so you may not remember exactly, but for people, I have my little toe in the water doing the Will Johnson book, but you've done so many of these, it's just second nature. But a lot of people probably don't realize, what is it like putting together a book like this? You've got to reach out to the contributors. You're going to, some of them are not going to want to do it. Some of them are going to be difficult. Probably some of them you have to write for them. I don't, you don't want to talk so much about that. But what was that process like when you started reaching out to contributors? How did they react, et cetera?
Well, let's see. So when I coming off the Rocky book, I had done a couple books, and they were all sort of in this, wheelhouse, Americana,
Right,
whatever. And I did Rocky, which was so out of my comfort zone. I mean, I almost talked to nobody I had talked to before in a book, all these psych rock crazy stuff. So
right.
when I came back to do Todd, it was to me, it was almost a cakewalk as far as the logistics of lining things up because I had to go into this whole other realm with Rocky with people who didn't know me. So when I came back here, I'd been working with the majority of either the artist or the publicist or whatever, and so I had no problem at all, really. I mean, if the few people I didn't get really either had a beef with Todd or there was some reason they didn't want to
Mm,
contribute, but it had nothing
yeah,
to do with me, I
gotcha.
mean, but no, I mean, the people they're all about it, man. They jumped all over this shit.
You bet. You bet.
Uh,
That was definitely the experience I had with Will Johnson. Everyone I contacted, I think I can say that safely. Everyone, if not everyone, almost everyone, they were thrilled to be able to. Yeah, I want to sing this guy's praises. And were most of your interviews done by phone? Some of them done in person. Some of them done by Zoom or something like this. How did that work?
this one was phone. I'm really slow adapting to new technology, new anything really. I don't like change. I've had this chair since the Towns book, and I refuse to get another one because I've written every book in this chair,
Uh,
you know. And so, like, Zoom happened. I remember. I'll tell you basically why I switched over was I was interviewing Steve Earle for the Rocky or some book, and he gave me so much shit because we were on the phone and I've at the end was like, all right, dude, I promise next time we talk, I'll be on Zoom. And he's like, it's about freaking time, like this is like the first phone interview I've done in 2 years. What are you doing, man? And so but yeah, this was still all phone. By the time I got to Nancy Griffith, I think that was almost all Zoom. And then I did a book on Judy Sill after, which was totally Zoom.
yeah.
And yeah, I Zoom changed the game as far as I'm concerned because I mean, I did phoners for 25 years, but just, when you're talking to someone like Jay Farrar who just will like dead stop at the end of a sentence and you're like, is he thinking? To be able to like see body language
Yeah.
it just changes
Yeah.
everything. And it's more fun. It's just more and my interviews went from being like 20 minutes long to like almost every interview for my last three books has been over an hour and a half. I mean, people just bullshit more when you're looking at someone.
Right. I can remember when I was teaching, and every year my dean would say in my annual review would say, "You need to get on board with online learning. That's the future." And I would always say, "Hell no, I love the
Yeah.
classroom too much." And
Yeah.
then COVID happened, and I had to. And that's the experience I had. I had the experience of, oh, actually, I still do prefer the classroom, but this is pretty nice. I do like this. There's a
Yeah.
lot of advantages to it. So none of the interviews were in person.
No, I don't, I haven't done it. I mean, I do it when I have to, but it's just so much easier. I do it
Yeah.
transcribing wise because I don't have, I don't like ambient noise. I can't, like when you usually get together at a coffee shop or a
Yeah.
bar, and it's just like there's too much shit going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Makes sense.
I've gotten to the point where I'm just not willing to lose anything, and so Zoom is so easy to do all the housekeeping, whatever, the recording, the downloading. It's cake. And like, so yeah, I'll do this forever if I can. And it's basically like in person. To me, it's the same freaking thing.
So let me just bring up a couple of the names,
Yeah,
and then you can respond either just in a word or two, or you could talk a little bit about how that went, or
sure.
you can just say pass.
Yeah.
Evelyn Jack.
Hmm. Well, Ramblin' Jack, I'm unofficially, like, I'm doing interviews with him right now, like for kind of for sport. Like his daughter asked me to start interviewing him for a potential book. So we're doing weekly interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm answering what about like how he was about Todd or just in general? Like,
Just what I mean. It's just the list of contributors reads like a who's who. It's just so cool, and I just think, what was your experience like working with these people? And I want to ask about Joe Ely, another tragic,
yeah.
unexpected death there, and Kevin Kinney, Don Was, Loretta Lynn, for God's sake, Colonel Bruce Hampton. I mean,
Well,
what
yeah,
array of fascinating people.
Loretta is a good story. All right, let me go.
You can hit
Jack,
that one.
well, I'll go quick. Jack
Yeah,
was cool. Jack's always cool as shit, man. He's
yeah,
rambling Jack. And
yeah.
he's just like, you just say hello and let him ramble,
Right,
really.
right.
So I don't even remember that. I've interviewed him so many times at this point. Kevin Kinney, man, I don't even remember these dudes. Like
Okay, it's okay.
no,
You
I do
have to
remember
you have to
he
remember Pamela DeBar, though. I mean, that's
yes, yes. Well, hold on. I want to.
okay. Yeah,
Who
I'm
so
sorry.
I don't know. I just don't want to short anyone because Joe Ely is always great, but he was always very short, like not in a bad way, but he's a very concise storyteller. I guess maybe sort of that's look at his songs. There's not a whole lot of fat on that. So like he really, at least from my experiences talking to him, was he talked like that. It was just like
Yeah,
I'd usually take a page and edit it down to a paragraph. He'd just give me that paragraph.
gotcha.
No, so it was sort of
That's
like
nice.
it was almost uncomfortable going through. It was like, are you done already? And then I'd go to edit and I'd be like, wow, he just
Yeah,
told that fucking thing straight through without anything. And
yeah.
so he's short in here, I think, but that's what he gave me, and it was great. The little story about they played, I think Joe and he and somebody else played that festival like in
Uh-huh.
Belton or somewhere in Texas where like nobody showed up because they didn't advertise it right. Then
Hmm.
everybody got and they were just like, well, fuck it, let's play, let's
Yeah,
have fun. Like our
yeah.
girlfriends are the only ones here.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
That's so those guys like they were really like cool like that. Um, yeah. Who? Oh,
Well, Pamela DeBar, right? I
Loretta.
want I want to hear about Pamela DeBar.
Loretta. Oh, Pamela DeBar. Um, I remember I emailed, she has a site or something, and I emailed her and I didn't know who the contact. I emailed like, info@pamdebar.com or whatever it was. And I said, hi, I want to interview Pamela. And she wrote right back to me, like on her, it was from her phone. So she got it. She wrote right back and she said, I love Todd. I'd love to talk to you anytime. And I said, I gave her some times and she said, well, like, I have time in like 45 minutes if you're around. And I thought, well, shit. Yeah. So
Do it.
we talked for like an hour and a half and she was great. Really cool. Really, I mean, I don't know what you would expect from Pam DeBar, but she pretty much she was just
Okay.
laid back.
Yeah.
She had that kind of Christofferson like vibe about her, which was like, this bulletproof, like there was nothing arrogant, cocky,
Uh-huh.
weird. It was just like she was so comfortable,
Uh-huh.
because you people could judge parts of her past, and
Oh yeah.
she's just like,
Yeah.
that's my life and I loved
Oh
it
yeah. Yeah.
and I'm
Oh.
living it still.
Oh,
And
and
she
proud
was
of it for sure. Yeah.
cool. Yeah, just
Yeah.
cool as shit, man. She was so
Yeah.
cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
Loretta.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to talk to Loretta. I mean, who doesn't, right? And so it's like, but she was sick, or she wasn't able to do a phone interview. And I tried and it just wasn't working out. And I didn't even know this, but I was doing an interview with Todd, and it feels to me like it was one of those days where the sun was coming up and he was like, "Oh, hey man, my buddy Mark is married to Loretta's daughter and Mark Marchetti." And maybe like he's like, "I think you talked to him." I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, let me call him after we're done and see if he can, figure something out." And nothing happened. And then but like a couple weeks later, Todd goes, "Yeah, so Mark was over at Loretta's, and Peggy, I think, is the Loretta had twins, and I'm pretty sure Peggy's Mark's wife. Sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but I think that's." And he said Peggy was there, and they brought up doing this interview, and she couldn't do a phone interview, but Loretta, like I had sent questions or something, and she dictated to Peggy, who wrote this all down by hand, and then gave it to Mark, who I think mailed it to me or faxed or at least something. But like, so I got this, and then I got it. I guess transcribed, typed it out, and put it in. I was like, holy fuck, I got this like fourth hand. But it's like I don't give a shit how I got that.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
got the only like kind of interview with Loretta Lynn in how many? I don't know how long. And so yeah, that was pretty cool. Even though I always feel like it's a little bit lesser if you don't do the actual talk, like an email interview. But it's like, man,
No,
when someone's that old and not doing any interviews anymore, and they give you
yeah,
that time,
yeah,
take it.
that's special. How
Yeah.
about Don Was?
So cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish I could be more jaded, but and I would. I
No,
don't just
he's
say people. I don't say people are just so, but he was so freaking
so
cool.
cool. So cool.
He was so hard to track down. Like I couldn't get to him. He either didn't have a manager. I just remember I tried for months. So when I try that hard, I usually think someone's either going to be difficult, they don't want to do this, but man, he just got on and was like, I mean, not to lump him in the producer thing and just like they're all the same, but he was very like mellow and cool, like that Rick Rubin vibe. You know what I mean? Just that like he said all nice things. He remembered crazy details
Yeah.
about the sessions, hanging out with Todd, just like things that, I mean, on his radar, Todd was a blip. I mean, when you're producing the Stones and like Todd Snider's not going to be the one you stick in the memory bank,
Right.
but he stuck him in there. Like,
Well, yeah, and his comments, I was surprised. I didn't realize, but that connection. But yeah, he spoke really. He clearly loved Todd for sure. Yeah.
yeah, they did that Excitement Plan. That one, it was a weird record, and it was the
Right.
one he did with Yep Rock, I think. It was a one-off, and I didn't like it. That there were a couple of songs that were killer, but it was all right. But yeah, they loved working together.
So I probably should have had you do this up front, but do you mind reading a little bit from the book?
Oh no, I don't usually read because of the way my books are, it's usually other people talking. That's why I told you I might do the intro, but like, and because I wanted to tell you this, like, if you the greater you happen to like see a couple of my books, I mean, I have a kind of a style, right? I'm at a thing like everybody does. So I wrote my intro and it just didn't do anything for me. It was just too like starchy and antiseptic. It was just like, I don't know, it was academic and it was just not grabbing me. But all the words were there. I saw them. I'm like, it needs something else. And I sat here for weeks and weeks. This thing was done. I could not come up with anything. And I went one day, the Jenny I mentioned from time to time is my friend Jenny Finley, who I own a record label and have businesses with and stuff. And she manages James McMurtry. And um, every once in a while, he'll need some posters picked up. And I'll say, like, hey, Jenny will say, hey, are you going north today? And I'll say, yeah, yeah, sure. Run up to Sir Speedy is the place. So I was going up to this place that's like 25-minute drive up the Mopac, up the highway on the west side of town here. And I was about halfway to this place, and I swear to God, this whole thing just word for word came out. And if I didn't have a yellow legal pad on the floor of the back seat, I grabbed that thing and I wrote it. I hand wrote it while I was driving 80 miles an hour up the Mopac. Like, I do not recommend, I do not endorse, don't do it. But like, it was not going to be, I would never have remembered a word. And this is not my writing style at all, but it just came out like this in this sort of like repetitive, like whatever way. But anyway, that so it's just like a fluke to me, like that this happened. But anyway, I'll read like that what I
Okay.
wrote up back that day, and to the part where I think it gets, but it worked because it has this like loosey goosey thing, and then all of a sudden it just kind of goes into the
Yeah.
regular.
No, it definitely works. Yeah.
And yeah, sorry if I stammer because I don't really read stuff, but and I haven't read this for 5 years. But all right. Todd Snider lives poetry in motion. He wakes up before every crack, dusts himself off, and follows the next song. His imagination corners him around every bend. Snyder is a marvel and a mystery, true romance that evaporates every time a new idea sparks his fancy. He lives and will die for the song. Snyder will not think twice. He creates at any cost. You think you understand what makes Todd Snider tick? Give up. He doesn't understand himself. However, he trusts. He trusts his instincts, he trusts his every move, and he believes. Snyder said the words in a song many years ago. He believes everything, and he honestly does. Snyder believes everything and nothing at the same time, yet he has faith in himself even when no one else does. His faith builds confidence. Confidence enables security. Security allows truth. Todd Snider tells the truth. He tells the truth about everything, literally everything. He will bullshit you about everything and never tell you a single lie because everything he says is true. Everything he says is true to him, and he speaks his truth without hesitation. You know that song that says, a man's lying because you see his mouth moving? Well, Todd Snider is speaking his truth and straight from the heart when you see his mouth moving. He wastes no one's time, even when he wastes everyone's time. Snyder says he doesn't care. The man cares. He cares enough not to bullshit you. He says nothing affects him, but everything does. Everything affects him. Todd Snider feels the earth's every turn underneath his bare feet. He absorbs all our missteps. Then he humanizes them in a song so we can all relate. You know the people in his songs. They are you, they are him, they are everyone under the sun. Todd Snider writes for the everyman because he is one. He's an everyman with burning curiosity. He understands that all we have in this earthly world are questions. We have no answers no matter who we ask in the sky. Snyder has a song called In the Beginning and one called If Tomorrow Never Comes. They ask those questions and answer nothing. His albums, Agnostic Hymns and Stoner Fables, and the first agnostic Church of Hope and Wonder, deliver his philosophy. After all, Todd Snider is a philosopher who signed up for the most thankless job in the world. He asks questions even though he knows there's no right answer. There's never any answer at all, only truths, his truths, our truths. Todd Snider belongs here to deliver the truths he's discovered along the way. Now, let's back up and start at the beginning. Todd Snider writes songs. And then it
That's
goes.
beautiful. That is beautiful, man. Yeah, I now I can't hear that without imagining you driving down Mopac, scribbling on a legal pad. But I'm sure uh, your subconscious was working on that, and it just bubbled up at that time. You
That's
know,
exactly. Yeah, I get it now, man. Like, and I have to admit, like, and I did this twice in my life. One was with Susanna Clark's obituary when I had about 2 hours to write it. I had one of those like, and the same thing happened. When I did that, I sent it to our friend Tamara Saviano, and I said, like, I don't know if it's going to print, and she took a paragraph out and said, like, oh my God, you went so over the top, it's embarrassing. But the rest, cool. I
yeah,
did this, and I gave it to Jenny, and I was like, she did the same thing. There was like a paragraph in the middle somewhere where she was like, oh, that's horrible. Just put these two parts together and
uh,
take that out because you're going to embarrass yourself saying that. And I can't remember what I said, but it was like, I'm sure it was some way over the top.
Sure.
You get carried away with this shit sometimes, but yeah,
We definitely need editors. We need people keeping us honest. In fact, that I wanted to read one little section from your book
yeah.
about John Prine
Mhm.
that sort of relates to that. And also, I'm hoping to give people a sense of what this book is. It's so cool because it's as I told you in an email, it reads like these contributors. The analogy I made in my mind was a guitar pull. They're all sitting in a room talking about Todd, and that's the way you set it up, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
But I wanted to read this one section here about Todd's song "Long Year."
yeah.
John Prine listened to the 18 songs I had written for Happy to Be Here and liked Missing You. He picked Long Year as the worst. I had originally titled the song "It Gets Harder to Listen All the Time." Instead of singing "It's Been a Long Year," I was singing "It Gets Harder to Listen All the Time." I asked John what was wrong with my songs. Listen to yourself singing about this thing like you're above it. The song was about a girl who went to AA. Listen, you're even making it about a girl, he said. It's not even about you, and you're still winning the argument. This is steroids. This isn't songwriting. You went to AA and got your feelings hurt. Now you want to use AA to zing them with a great song about going to AA and getting your feelings hurt? You've wasted that on the song where you went to AA and made some jokes about how dumb they are. Good for you. Wow.
Yeah.
I went home and changed the song to my point of view. I changed "It Gets Hard to Listen to Other People," which is a pretty shitty thing to say, to it's been a really long year. I took the song out of A minor and put it into D major, which is more wistful and less angry. I sang it for him. He said, "You're getting it. You should record that now." Uh, one of the two of the things that I found interesting about this is I don't know why I never thought of Prine as being such a critical voice. He always just seemed like such a sweetheart that I couldn't imagine him saying to him, "Yeah, that doesn't work, man." But clearly John was that guy. But the other thing that I thought was interesting about reading this book and what came out about Todd that I had not realized, he always seemed like someone who was just riffing off the top of his head, and man, that ain't the truth. So much of the stories, the
Yeah.
shows, everything was very carefully planned, wasn't it?
Yeah, but at the same time, he did. It's sort of like that intro. It's like it's not that he didn't riff. He riffed all the
Oh yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah,
but he took those riffs, put them down, and then yeah, the thing that nobody thinks about is that he edited the shit out of it, and
yeah,
then he got it down to the essence of whatever, and then he rehearsed it. Then he rehearsed it, and
yeah,
over the times I was around him, he was constantly just like telling these stories on the bus, just talking through them and doing whatever, and
right,
yeah, it was very, very well planned. And Prine, man, like you know, all those guys, like all those guys in that Nashville clique, like they were all pretty fucking like ruthless about that stuff, And then you look at a Prine song and think, he's talking in very common language, and everything seems very simple, but nobody really thinks about the fact that if you use a word, John Prine, if you asked him, had like 18 synonyms he could have used. He just chose that easy. It sounds simple, but it's worked better.
yeah,
It's not that he was a simple-minded person. It wasn't that he didn't think critically. We don't think that because you don't see it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's all behind the scenes. And Todd was the same way. He labored over this shit forever and ever,
hmm yeah,
constantly. I mean, that's what I mean about like to him, the drugs and all that was part of the whole thing for whatever reason. And he didn't he didn't make excuses about that. Wasn't embarrassed. And the same about the writing. It was all part of this. It was one lifestyle to him. And he did it constantly,
yeah.
all the time. He was always going for a song.
And
So,
that's one of the things that reminds me that makes me think of Towns because of that famous quote of Towns where he said he had that realization that he could do this, but to do it, he had to give up everything. He had to give up relationships. He had to give up his own happiness. He had to give up, health. He had to give up everything and put it all into the music. I don't know that Todd was exactly that way, but he was similar in the sense that that was all he did. That was him.
in his own way. I mean, if you look at it, he pretty much lost a lot of those things along the way, and did it all to write the next song,
Yeah.
and that's why it's like, man, it's commendable on one hand, but it's like a kind of cautionary tale at the same time. Like, but if that's what you're here to do, if that's what you believe you're here, like, why not, man? He did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I can, my memories of seeing him perform is just of one of the most charismatic people I've ever been around. One of
Yeah.
those guys that I mean, he walks in the room and it's like, you're going to notice this guy. There's just something about him that's different, that's charismatic, that's fun, that's interesting, that's, entertaining. Um, so any other favorite Todd stories that you learned while doing this book? Oh, one question I wanted to ask you, your intro, your beautiful intro. Did Todd get to read that?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I mean, I never have let people read a book before and I don't even, I mean, I'm sure Tom or somebody would give a shit for that, but um, just because of the dynamics of this book and because Todd is so close to Jenny's family and all of that, and we're all tied in together. I didn't want, there were certain things that, like, he had said certain things that after the fact that his management asked to read the book, and I'm glad they did because I probably would have been sued for a couple things he said because I put him, because he just talked. He didn't have any filter, and there were certain things like some people dying and how they died and things like that that shouldn't be in print, and um, so I wanted him to read it because I didn't want him to be pissed about something after the fact. I wanted to be like, hey, if you got a problem, I'm probably not going to change it. And I told him this. I was like, I'm probably not going to change anything, but if we're going to fight about it, let's do it now. Because we did have we had some once in a while a little back and forth stuff where Jenny was. I mean, I tell people all the time, I would have never finished this book if not for her being the mediator. Because prickly is a nice word to describe Todd, and then also me if you're that way to me. And so we had kind of that, but it was fine. I mean, he did want to change about 1,000 things, and I didn't. And I wanted to basically make sure there were no factual errors, no, whatever, just stuff only he would know. And so a couple things, there were a couple little things, but he really wanted me to change a ton of stuff. And I was like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, there's a part on spirituality
Yeah.
he really didn't want to he didn't want to keep it in the book, and I said probably my favorite part of this book, man. I'm not taking it out. And he said, well, man, who am I to say, like that was the thing about him. He had all these really strong opinions, but and it's in his songs too. Like he would say stuff, but he never really said I know. It was always I believe or maybe this is the case.
Right.
But and there's this one line he has in some song like believing and knowing they're two different things. It's like,
Yeah.
well, but he was like that, and so he was like, yeah, I know I believe this stuff, but who am I to say, man? Like, why do you want to, why would this be in a book? Why would I tell people? And it's like, well, you're not telling, you're just saying what you believe. And he's like, but I sound like I'm preaching. And I'm like, you're not, man. And he really got worried about that stuff. And then the last time I actually had an interaction with him was he gave me that the quote that's right at the front of the book under his hat. There's a thing he like something like I don't know if there's a God or not, but I know there's no Todd Snider. And he said, I really want that in the book, man. I was like, all right, dude, I'll put that in, man. What?
Sure.
But he did read it many times, and he told me a lot when he was really down. It helped him see people say nice stuff, and especially after he lost a ton of friends in the last few years. So I'm actually kind of glad he did. I'm glad that he felt better.
Yeah.
It helped him get out of some bad spots. But yeah, that is not normal. I can't foresee ever doing that again
Yeah.
because people, but we had such a good, and the reason we had some issues was because we were very friendly and very
Yeah.
immediately trusted each other.
Yeah.
And so we were able to fight about stuff and it was cool. But I was also able to say, I'm just not changing that, dude. You knew you were doing an interview.
Yeah.
You've done a million interviews. You know this is on the record. And every time, to his credit, he would push so hard. And when I was just like, no, every time he'd be like, man, it's a great book. So glad you did it. Great, awesome. And he'd just drop it like nothing.
Yeah.
Then it would come up again in a few months, you
That
know.
sounds like Todd.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, I know you have a book coming out on Kevin Russell.
I mean, I'm working on it. I hope
Is
it's,
that
yeah.
is that? I don't think I'm saying something I shouldn't say there. You've made that.
No.
I think that's on your website, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you at liberty to say other projects you have in the works, or is that the only one that you're really working on?
Right now it is. I mean, I have a bunch of things that have been backburnered that I don't think will ever happen again. But like, no, just that Ramblin' Jack thing. That's just sort of to see what happens. It may just go in my archives at somewhere. I'm not sure. Um, Kevin, I gotta focus on Kev because it's the first book I've done with. I have so much excess information because like where I did these 6 or 7 interviews with Todd, I've done. I mean, Kevin's someone I've known for a long time, and Jenny and I produced a record with him, and like, so we're really comfortable. And I have like I don't even know like 40 hours of Zoom interviews, and then I talk to 100 something other people. I mean, I just have so much. Whittling it down is that's why I got so lost today. I'm starting to put the easiest part of the book together, and combining him with the other people, and it's just like, oh my God, and nobody has the same time frame. Everyone, this person moved to Dallas here, and then Kevin said 80 pages earlier he went there, and it's like, um, but I gotta focus on that because then he has had 3 bands. I've never done like different bands with different members, and um, I don't know. I want to do a book on Rodriguez, but there's a really detailed book about him, so I'm not sure I can top that. Um, and Gil Scott Heron's someone I really want to do. I keep getting shot. I get A&M shot me down for years on those guys, and I'm not really sure why. After
Oh,
they let Tom let me do that Judy Sill book, and she was all Los Angeles, but like I never understand how it comes. Like, oh, you can do whatever you want, and then but it's got to be Texas. Doesn't have to be Texas. It's sort of like
right.
depending on the mood. And I was striking at the wrong time to get another outside book with Gil Scott Heron was like DC and
Uh-huh.
Rodriguez was Detroit. I kind of like the idea of if I can get out of Texas, going somewhere that I've never written about, or even like Greenwich Village that I know about a lot, but I've never written a book centered there, and
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I
yeah.
like getting into the new scenes and new ideas. And I was actually just talking to Nori Guthrie, who runs the archive at Rice University, yesterday, and we were going through all these like Houston Historical Society, like Lightning Hopkins and Guy and Towns, and like kind of going back to the early blues. And I was just sort of like digging around for book ideas, but like I did Mickey Newberry was a Houston book. I'm not really, but he came out of there, and Towns had a lot of Houston. But I never have done like a all Houston. Like Newberry was mostly Nashville, so like it'd be nice to just do that whole scene where I can study everything.
That I think that would be a really interesting book. That scene in Houston when Guy
Yeah,
and uh, and Towns and Lightning was part of that thing too.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. Well, by the way, I thought Patterson Hood would be a good subject for a book like this, and I think a lot of people. He has such an interesting life, and with his dad and all that stuff too. But so many possible books out there. Um, well, let's see. And you said you have so much on Kevin, so this isn't helpful at all. But he was on my podcast, and he did say some pretty interesting things. I challenged him on a couple questions, so you already have too much information, but you might want to take a quick glance at that podcast.
I might, but you're totally right. It's dangerous because he
Yeah,
has so much out there that I'm so overwhelmed already. I'm overwhelmed with what we did, and
yeah,
then what I gathered outside of that is, and I will say one thing that ties this here together is, and I forget if I told you this, but like I've had a lot of favorite interviews with the Kevin book because we're in the same age range, give or take, and like so I just have a lot in common with those guys. And Will was one of my favorites. I mean, Will, Brent Best from Slobberbone, and those guys in that Denton, like in that North Dallas, like cool as shit, man. Like Will, we talked at least for 2 hours. Same with Brent. Um, and it was like nonstop good shit. Like Like it was just there were no breaks, no hesit. Like, it was just like we just talked, and it was really good material. They were really, really thoughtful dudes, and I didn't know either of them going into that. I just knew Will from what you've said.
Yeah.
Um, and then Brent, like Slobberbone's so like her, like hard, like I just think of whatever, and he was just such a
Oh,
sweet dude.
he's a sweetheart. He is a
Yeah,
sweetheart.
yeah.
I have to ask, given the strained relationship with Jimmy, is Jimmy
Oh,
a part of this book?
I'm gonna say it's not over yet.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'll say two things: not yet, and it's not over yet.
Okay.
I'm not gonna try anymore. I promised him I wouldn't push it, but he may if he changes his mind. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
There, a couple of the guys have not chosen to be in the book, and it is what
Yeah.
it's like. And I'm just gonna get what I get and make a book out of it. And it's
Sure.
to me, it's
Well,
like sorry, it's sort of your loss. I mean, you can. I want you in here and tell
yeah.
your part,
Yeah.
but whatever.
And Kevin is such a fascinating dude. I'm sure it's going to be a fun book. Let's go ahead and wrap up, man. Is there anything else that you, I'll just show this book again. People buy this book. It's so interesting. And if you love Todd, you definitely need to read this book. Um, Anything else that you want to say before we go about Todd or about anything?
Oh, I don't know, man. Other than like of all the books I've done and hopefully will do, there's never been one that has just like I didn't. I have like for this Kevin book, I have this many whatever folders of research, and I know him pretty well. And I'm like the Judy Sill book, I just had dozens and dozens, and it was all research. I don't think I printed out one piece of research for Todd. I mean, I've his music has been part of my life. Even Towns, who was my favorite, until I found Judy. Now they're kind of both up there, but like there was just something. I just knew him. It's just part of me. Those songs, all this stuff. So I never even prepped any questions for anybody or any. We just talked, and it was just I would say 98% of it was a total joy to do. It was just fun. It was great to get to know him. I'm glad I did. He was cool as shit. Any of the, you know, negative, prickly, whatever stuff, some stuff happened and some stuff came up with other people involved, but he was a complex dude, and I'm not going to go past that, but but overall, he was awesome. And I just liked the fact that I got to be in that little world,
Yeah.
and like when I finished this book and Jenny had one of Todd's old guitars and she gave it to me as a like, hey, congratulations. So I got it. That's the guitar I play most of the time is his old guitar. And it's just one of those things. It was just and it wasn't like, oh my God, I get to do this. It was just like, it felt natural, like, man, this is the one I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And I like doing all of them, but that one was just sort of like, I remember last time when we were talking and you said something about like, doing this is one thing, but like for you, songwriting was like swimming or something. It was just like that, like it was natural. And that's the way that book felt compared to other stuff. Like it came together, everyone was wanting to do it. They said good stuff, they were cool, and yeah, man, I'm glad I did it. And I had a different cover photo picked out, and I'm not really sure why A&M kind of went behind my back with this one and used something else. But
I wasn't going to bring that up, but
I
since you
I
have,
I'm not crazy about what happened. I'm I yeah, I mean I was pissed. I'm not gonna lie, I was fucking pissed. But
it's not the best. It's not the best representation of Todd. It just
well,
is.
before you go far down that road, I shot that and it's my favorite live shot ever. However, it's not a goddamn book cover.
Right.
That's the thing. It's a
Right.
great shot. It's a great when you open up the book and look through live shots, yeah. But it's it's not my thing. I've gone through this before. Design is not where I win battles over there.
Right. Right.
But I wish they would have at least said they were gonna. I suspect they knew I would have kicked back a little bit about it. But yeah, I don't love that. But and I don't think the other photo even made the book, which is a bummer because Stacy, how could we? The photographer gave me all those photos, who was like his personal photographer. was awesome and didn't charge me for any of them. And it should have been her shot on the front. It was a perfect shot of him like in a doorway. He was just like, he wasn't performing. He was just him hanging out. It was,
I do. Excuse me. I do really like the look on his face, though.
yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
good shot. It's
it
just not,
is. It is.
it's just, if you know what I mean? Like when you say it's not the best representation, it represents his personality to me more than his song. Like his
I
song
question,
should be more serious.
I question the tie and the pink shirt. And yeah, he was apt to wear different things like that, but it just, it's not the way I think of Todd, I
Yeah.
guess is what I would say. But it doesn't matter because it's out there. It's a terrific read. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing this podcast again. I really appreciate it. Look forward to the book on Kevin, and wish you all the best, my friend.
Thanks, man. You too. Good luck with everything. And yeah, I'll hopefully talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
All right.